The room was quiet, too quiet. The only sound was the faint ticking of the clock above our fireplace. David's eyes locked on mine, steady and searching, as if he wanted to see straight into my soul. His voice was low, but it carried the weight of a hammer striking glass. "Have you ever cheated on me?" I froze. My lips parted, but no words came out. My heart pounded so loud I was certain he could hear it. My chest tightened, and I felt as if the air had left the room. I wanted to say no. I wanted to smile, to laugh it off, to reassure him that his fears were foolish. But my silence betrayed me. That moment was the night everything I had tried so desperately to bury rose to the surface. Before I go deeper, I want to pause and thank you, my wonderful audience. To everyone who has already subscribed to this channel, thank you for fueling my storytelling journey. To all my new and returning viewers who have not yet subscribed, I cannot wait for you to hit that subscribe button because it serves as the fuel and energy that keeps this channel alive. Please, do not forget to engage with this story and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your words mean more than you know. I am Emily, a 29-year-old woman born and raised in a small town in the United States. On the surface, I had the perfect life. I was married to David, a man of integrity, discipline, and compassion. He was 32, a construction manager who worked long hours but always made time for us. We lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood where everyone waved to each other and children rode bikes freely on the street. People admired us. They said we were the couple who had it all. They saw our smiles at neighborhood barbecues and church gatherings. They saw David holding my hand in public, his protective nature shining through. What they did not see were the cracks forming behind closed doors. And then there was Mark. His name alone made my stomach twist with both longing and regret. But before I can tell you about him, I must return to that night. The night when David's questions split open everything. We had just finished dinner. The candle still burned faintly, casting soft shadows across the table. I pushed my plate away, pretending to be full, though I could hardly taste anything I had eaten. I had been restless all evening. David's eyes never left me. It was as though he was studying me, weighing every movement, every blink. Finally, he placed his fork down and leaned back. His face was calm, but I knew that calmness. It was the calm before the storm. "Emily," he said slowly, his voice almost a whisper, "I need you to tell me the truth. Have you ever cheated on me?" I felt my throat close. My hands trembled beneath the table. I reached for my glass of water, hoping it would buy me time, but even lifting it felt impossible. The silence between us grew thicker by the second. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. The truth swelled inside me like a tidal wave, yet I could not release it. Instead, I stared at him, wide-eyed, like a child caught in a terrible act. That was when I saw it, the flicker of pain in his eyes. He already knew. That moment dragged me back in time. Back to how everything started. Back to when Mark entered my life. But I will not get ahead of myself. That night, the silence between David and me was deafening. He pushed back his chair and stood up, his jaw tight, his hands curled into fists at his sides. He did not yell. He did not slam anything. But his silence was worse than any outburst. "Emily," he said finally, "the way you cannot answer me tells me more than your words ever could." And with that, he walked out of the dining room, leaving me sitting there with the echo of my guilt pressing hard against my chest. I remember staring at the candlelight, watching it flicker, wondering how something so small could still shine while my marriage was beginning to crumble. I wanted to run after him. I wanted to confess everything, to fall to my knees and beg for forgiveness. But I stayed frozen, paralyzed by shame and fear. In that moment, I was not just a wife with secrets. I was a coward. The guilt did not start that night. It had been building for months, maybe years, in quiet moments when temptation whispered louder than reason. It started at the gym, a place where I went to escape the stress of my marriage and the monotony of suburban life. And that was where I met Mark. Even as I sat in the dining room that night, replaying David's question in my head, Mark's image came flooding back. His eyes, his smile, the way he made me feel alive in a way I had not felt in years. But the truth was this, no matter how thrilling it was never worth the price I was about to pay. That night ended with David sleeping in the guest room, and me lying in our bed alone, staring at the ceiling, haunted by every choice I had made. His question had shattered me, and my silence had shattered him. And it was only the beginning. I can still remember the first time I saw Mark as clearly as if it happened yesterday. It was a Tuesday morning in early spring, and the gym was unusually crowded. I had been dragging myself through my usual routine, running on the treadmill while my thoughts wandered aimlessly. I had been restless in my marriage for months. David was working late hours, coming home exhausted, and our conversations had become robotic. We went through the motions of life without touching the passion that once tied us together. I told myself the gym was my escape, my way to release tension. But that day, my escape took a dangerous turn. Mark walked in. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with an easy confidence that filled the room. His dark hair was tousled, his smile quick and charming. He was not the type of man who blended into the background. I noticed him immediately, and I hated myself for how quickly I noticed. Our first conversation was casual. He asked if I was almost done with the weight machine. I nodded, stepping aside, trying not to stare at the way his arms flexed as he began his set. We exchanged names. He asked me how long I had been coming to the gym. His voice carried warmth, as if he was genuinely interested, and that small dose of attention felt like water to a thirsty soul. I walked away that day telling myself it was nothing. Just a stranger. Just a harmless conversation. But deep down, I knew it had ignited something I had not felt in years. The days turned into weeks, and soon I noticed how I timed my workouts to match his. He noticed too. He would smile when I walked in, and I felt butterflies that had no business living in the chest of a married woman. One day, I sat on the bench between sets when he leaned closer and said softly, "You know, you have the kind of smile that makes people forget where they are." It was innocent enough, but my cheeks burned. I told myself it was just flattery, that I could brush it off. But I did not brush it off. I carried those words with me when I left the gym. I thought of them when I made dinner for David. I thought of them when I folded laundry. And worst of all, I thought of them when I lay in bed beside my husband. It escalated slowly. First, it was sharing workout tips. Then it was talking about music, movies, our favorite places to eat. Soon, it was texting. Late-night conversations that stretched into the early hours. I would set my phone face down whenever David walked into the room, claiming it was just a friend from the gym. But Mark was not just a friend. He was becoming something more. The first time he touched me, it was not even in a romantic way. I had been struggling to rack weights, and he placed his hand on mine to help. But that touch sent a spark through me. I pulled away quickly, but his eyes lingered on mine, and for a brief moment, the air between us was charged with something neither of us could deny. The affair began on a rainy Thursday afternoon. I had told David that I was running errands after work. Instead, I met Mark at a small cafe outside of town. I told myself it was only coffee, only conversation. But when the rain poured down and we ran to his car, when he looked at me with those piercing eyes and leaned closer, I did not resist. The kiss was electric, forbidden, dangerous. My body betrayed me as much as my heart. I kissed him back with a hunger I did not even know I still had. That kiss was the beginning of my unraveling. What started as stolen moments turned into full-blown meetings. At first, it was once a week. Then it became whenever we could find the time. In his apartment, in hotel rooms, in places where we thought no one would ever see us. Each time I told myself it would be the last, but each time I returned. The passion was intoxicating. Mark made me feel young again, alive again, as if I had stepped out of the routine of marriage into a world of endless desire. But with every encounter, the guilt grew heavier. I would come home to David, pretending nothing had changed, cooking dinner, asking about his day, forcing myself to smile while the memory of Mark's hands lingered on my skin. David was not blind. He noticed my distracted looks, the sudden late nights, the way my phone became an extension of my hand. He did not confront me at first, but I saw it in his eyes. The doubt. The suspicion. The quiet distance that began to grow between us. One evening, he reached across the table, his hand brushing mine, and said softly, "You have been somewhere else lately. Is everything all right?" I forced a smile. "Just tired," I whispered. But even as I said it, I felt the lie burning on my tongue. It was a dangerous game I was playing, balancing two lives. With David, I was the loyal wife, the picture of devotion. With Mark, I was reckless, wild, consumed by passion. But deep down, I knew this double life could not last. And I was right. The night David asked me if I had ever cheated was the night everything came crashing down. But the truth is, the collapse had begun long before that question. It began the moment I allowed temptation to become betrayal. David's question did not leave my mind. It haunted me during the day, it echoed in my dreams at night, and it clung to me like a shadow I could not escape. His eyes, filled with pain and suspicion, were etched into my memory. I tried to act as if nothing had happened, but the truth weighed on me like a stone. I would watch him moving around the house, fixing a leaky faucet, folding laundry, or sipping his coffee in the mornings, and I would feel the ache of what I had done. He was a good man. A man who had loved me, who had trusted me. And I had betrayed him in the cruelest way. The silence between us grew longer with each passing day. We still shared the same space, the same bed, but our connection was broken. Sometimes I would catch him watching me, and I could see the unspoken question in his eyes. He wanted to believe in me, but my hesitation that night had already planted a seed of doubt he could not ignore. The breaking point came one evening. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling mindlessly through my phone, when David walked into the living room. He stood there for a long moment, staring at me. His face was unreadable, but his voice carried a storm. "Emily," he said, his tone low and controlled, "I need the truth. I cannot live like this. I cannot keep pretending I do not see it. Tell me. Were you unfaithful to me?" The room spun around me. My throat tightened, my palms sweated, and tears filled my eyes before I could even answer. I wanted to deny it again, but the weight of silence was crushing me. "Yes," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Yes, I was." The words hung in the air like shards of glass, cutting through both of us. David's face crumpled. He staggered back as though the air had been knocked out of him. He covered his face with his hands, and when he looked at me again, his eyes were red with tears. "How long?" he asked. "For months," I admitted. My chest burned with shame. He turned away, pacing the room. His fists clenched and unclenched, his breath coming in sharp bursts. He did not scream. He did not throw anything. His silence, his trembling restraint, was worse than rage. "Why, Emily?" he asked finally. "Why him? Why anyone?" I had no answer that could heal the wound I had carved into him. I tried to explain the loneliness, the distance, the way temptation had slipped in. But every word sounded hollow. I had made choices, selfish choices, and now I was watching the man I loved shatter before me. That night, David slept on the couch. I lay in our bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of his muffled sobs from the living room. Each sound was like a dagger in my chest. I had done this. I had broken the man who had once believed I was his safe place. Days turned into weeks. We spoke little. When we did, it was sharp, strained, as though every word carried the risk of reopening the wound. I thought it was over. I thought my marriage was beyond saving. And then, something unexpected happened. One Sunday morning, David asked me to sit with him at the kitchen table. His eyes were tired, his face drawn, but there was a strange calmness about him. "I cannot keep living with anger," he said. "It is destroying me. And it will destroy us completely if we let it. Emily, I do not know if I can forget. But I do know that I love you. And love, real love, does not walk away without a fight. My breath caught. Tears filled my eyes as I reached for his hand. I do not deserve your forgiveness, I whispered. Maybe not, he replied softly, but forgiveness is not about who deserves it. It is about whether or not we can build again. Can we? I broke down in tears, nodding, clutching his hand as though my life depended on it. In that moment, I realized that love was not about perfection. It was about endurance. About grace. About holding on when it would be easier to let go. The road to healing was not easy. Trust had to be rebuilt brick by brick. There were arguments, setbacks, nights when David recoiled from my touch. But there were also moments of progress, counseling sessions, long walks where we talked honestly, nights when we held each other and remembered why we chose each other in the first place. Mark became nothing more than a shadow of my past. I cut him off completely, deleted his number, erased him from my life. The thrill had been temporary. The damage, however, had been almost permanent. But David chose me. He chose us. And I chose to fight for the man who had given me a second chance I did not deserve. Looking back now, I know that the night David asked me if I had ever cheated was the night my mask fell. It was the night I was forced to face the truth of what I had done. It was also the night that began the long, painful process of redemption. Betrayal may have broken us, but forgiveness allowed us to rebuild. And in that rebuilding, I found a deeper love than I ever thought possible. Because sometimes, the most powerful love story is not the one without scars, but the one where two people choose to heal together.